Rose did tell me that you were sneaking in.
Yes, not for long though. But I couldn't miss it. Oh, my brother's having a big operation. My brother-in-law's having a big operation and stuff. He's losing a kidney this afternoon. So, yes. All right, hope it goes well.
Well, thank you. Yes. About 2 minutes, people. There's some serious whistling going on in someone's hearing aid. No, they're singing a song. About a minute, people. If you aren't sitting, please find your chair. We are about to commence. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 2024 AGM and Conference for Blind Citizens New Zealand. Jonathan Godfrey speaking, National President. We are taking a microphone to Daniel Phillips, please.
Morena people. Mr. Chairman, can we do that, the waiata this morning?
Your call.
And you will just have a prayer.
Tuai is ready to do
I
the
think
waiata
we're trying to
following.
build a tikanga in the organisation. Unless they're in the church, they don't have a waiata for breakfast. Yeah, we just have you do the welcome and then I do the prayer and we're in business. You've done the welcome, so I'll do the klakia. Would that be all right this morning?
The people who would have done the waiata for you are saying yes, it's fine. Go ahead, please.
Inoe tātou te whānau, e pā, manaki e mai mātou I tēnei rā, I tēnei ata, I tēnei whare. Manaki e mai mātou kia pai e te haere o a mātou mahi roto I tēnei whare. Manaki e mai o ke pā tēnei raupu, e mahi nei, e nui nei ngā mahi e mahi anau. Ki te hono ki te tiriti o Waitara. Manaki no reira manaki e mai mātou, manaki e mai tō mātou whānau Pākehā. Ora te o e pātai nā koe pā kia koe, I nui te ingo o tō tama I Hukuraiti. Āmen.
Before we go around the room for roll call, we are going to remind you how to get out of here in case of emergency or what to do in case of the other kind of emergency. Rose will walk us through that. While you're listening carefully to that, and if you are able to multitask, remembering that roll call is who you are, where you're from, and because it's our first morning, tell us how many conferences you've been coming to. Right? All within 30 seconds. So, Rose, emergency preparedness, what have we got to do?
Right, so first of all, we've got a hand up at the back from Nat, and I'd like to have the people on Zoom on screen, please, just for the Jared and the guys at the back, so we know who's present. Can we just have a microphone to Nat, please, to see what Nat's needing? Nat, put your hand up, please, and Emily will come to you.
Sorry, we just had a request if we could please have the karakia translated into English.
There's a good kohanga reo in Christchurch, if you're from Christchurch.
Can we have a summary, please, Dan?
If you're short of it, my daughter runs one in Rotorua and she's got a waiting list for 52 weeks. That's a good one and all. Where's that microphone? I don't normally translate, but I do explain later on, and we should have done this a long time ago. Like when the remit was first put in, and you learn the first part of the prayer, 3 words at a time. We might have an exercise in that, Mr. Chairman, starting with your pepeha.
We might stick to today's plan first and see how we go. I think we'll get on with the emergency stuff, just in case it happens, and we'll see how our welcomes go in a moment.
And housekeeping stuff as well. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Jonathan. So basically, if there's any sort of emergency other than an earthquake, which we will drop, cover and hold, and if you're not able to do that, then you may move to a sound wall, which for everybody will be on the far right, and just stand by the wall, but otherwise drop, cover and hold in the event of an earthquake. And if we need to leave for fire or any other emergency point, go out of the room the way you have come in turn right and go out the exit, and there will be a warden there telling us where to go. So we don't get told now where we are to go. There will be a warden standing at the door, guiding everybody out to where we actually need to assemble. Do you want to do any other housekeeping
No,
at the moment? No. So those are the key things, and we'll come back to housekeeping a little bit later. Thank you.
The only other thing, if you cannot find that back door comfortably, you are better to stay sitting in your chair.
Yeah. There are
Plenty of help
sighted
around.
people of us here to assist people out, all right? Thank you.
All right, roll call. We've got our microphone runners ready.
I've introduced myself.
Take it away.
No, we start with you. Oh dear. Andrea has her hand up, please.
Tech support to Andrea at the front, please.
Right.
Daniel,
Daniel, we do start with you, even though you've done karakia, please.
where you're from, etc.
Ka ingoa ko... Let's start again. Ka ingoa ko Rani Era Phillips. That's the name Te Arawa gave me when I first moved to Te Arawa. And no te pē whairangi ahau, that's telling you that I'm from the best place in New Zealand, the Bay of Islands. My grandmother got naughty with my grandmother. Out came my mother. My mother did a naughty with my father. I'm the one sitting here today. When you do your paper our way, that's how you introduce yourself. You got to know your great-grandfather, your grandfather, your mother and father, and then they say, my great-grandfather slept with my great-grandmother, I'm here. Out of that came my mother or father, but you say it in Māori. And then your grandfather married your grandmother, and standing in front of you is your mother or father. But they do it in Māori. We might do a bit of that for 5 minutes. Yeah. And I got happy because my great-grandmother was sent down to the beach in Whakatane to get seafood and came home with a bag full of seamen.
Ko Harate Phillips, ahau. I'm from Rotorua.
Your whakapapa, mate, you got a good whakapapa. If you don't, I will.
How many conferences have we been to?
Oh, 27.
We've been to 27 conferences.
Thank you. Alan Jones from Wellington. My first conference was either 1958 or 1959 in Hamilton. I haven't been to every conference since then consistently. I missed 3 years overseas, and I missed a few conferences when my children were growing up. But I'm glad to be here today.
Annette Moffat, I'm Alan Jones's wife of 45 years. We're from Wellington. This is my first conference.
Yay!
I'm Janice Mertens from South Canterbury, and I've been to about 10 conferences.
Margaret Wattam from Rotorua. This is my first conference.
Welcome, Margaret.
Ron Wattam from Rotorua, my first conference as well.
Gary Adler, observer from Melbourne. I will admit to being a former Kiwi, I still am, I guess. So kia ora to everyone, and I'm also with BCA in Melbourne, and my CEO, who is probably known to some of you as Deb Deshays, or she was Deb Regan, said to me, just observe. So I'm doing that.
Yeah, right.
Morena, Russell Larry Aho, currently residing in Whanganui, and this is my first conference.
Welcome, Russell.
Kia ora, Thomas Bryan from Wellington. And how many conferences been? I can't recall, but I know the first one, I think, was in Wellington at the St. George Hotel. Oh, what year? I think that would have been in the early 70s.
Kia ora everyone, Chantal Griffiths speaking from Auckland, and this is my first conference.
Kia ora, it's Lachlan Keating. I'm the CEO of Deaf Aotearoa. And I regret to say that despite Rose's relentless invitations, this is, over 12 years, this is my first conference, so it's good to be here.
Kia ora, it's Carolyn Peach from Auckland, and I'm sorry, but I've lost count on how many conferences, but been to 3 locations in the south and several locations in the north.
Kia ora everyone, Mary Schnackenberg from Tamaki Makaurau. My first conference was in Whanganui in 1974. I'm sure you will recall I've told you stories about that conference. And I don't know how many I've been to since.
Kia ora whanau, Clive Lansing from Tamaki Makaurau, and my first conference is probably 1976 or thereabouts, maybe 77, 78. Can't quite remember, but I've been coming to conferences most of the time since then.
Kia ora, ko Paul Brown aho. The accent's a complete giveaway that I'm from Tamaki. This, I believe, is my 12th conference.
Kia ora koutou everybody, it's Martine Abel-Williamson from Tamaki Makaurau. I bring greetings internationally from the World Blind Union as I'm the president, and I would love to hear what's coming back from this conference. And I'm also, if you want to catch up during the conference, I'm your representative on the Accessible Books Consortium internationally.
Good morning, Gary Williamson. Auckland now, originally Hamilton. In regards to conferences, I can't remember, too many or not enough. And welcome everyone.
Tēnā koutou, ko te wai halatau aho. I reside in Tamaki Makaurau, work there, and I'm on the Auckland Branch Committee, and here's Lātoa.
Whakalofalahi atu, New End Language Week, and kia ora tātou katoa. Yeah. Lātoa halatau, tālangi. Good to be here, and testing my memory, when was my first conference? Along with Clive, I followed Clive everywhere he goes. And I'm glad to be here. Tēnā koutou.
Morena koutou, me ngā mihi mahana kia koutou katoa, warm greetings to all. Ko Hannah Pascoe Ho no Murihiku in Invercargill. It's awesome to be here at another conference, and so glad to see you all. and gold star to anyone who can actually remember how many conferences they've been to. My first one was in 2005, and I'm not sure how many I've been to since. But hope you all have a good weekend.
Tēnā koutou katoa, no kawatiri aho, ko Chrissy Fern tōku ingoa. Greetings to you all, I live in Bulla, and my name is Chrissy Fern.
Morena koutou, ko Pauline Malam tōku ingoa. I am from Wellington. I happen to be your representative on the Blend School Board, and I think this is conference number 6.
Kia ora everyone, Morena, it's Bev Duncan, Guide Dog Handlers Special Interest Network Coordinator, and representing them today here at conference. And I live in Auckland. I don't remember how many conferences I've been to, too many to remember. However, I always remember when working in the Talking Book Library, and many of the blind staff there marched down Queen Street in 1978, and I remember everyone doing that except me, and I was so impressed by it and the consolidation of everybody being involved at that time that I joined not long after that, and I'm a member for life.
Kia ora, good morning everyone. I'm Lena Coleman from Auckland. I am the current representative on BANZAT, and this is, it must be my 7th conference.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Juanita Willems. I'm the coordinator for the Otago Network, soon to be branch. And I'm pretty sure this is my 4th conference.
Kia ora everyone, I'm Nat from Palmerston North, and last year was my first conference as an observer, and this is my first proper conference as a life member. Kia ora.
Ko rua hini ngā maunga, ko Magaretu te awa, ko rākau tātahi te marae, ko Ngāti Kahungunu ki Tamati e toku iwi. Ko Pire Alana hau, e noho ana hau ki pamutana I nai nei, no reira tēnā koutou. I grew up under the mountains of the Ruahine Ranges alongside a river called Makaretu, where my marae rākau tātahi sits, and that makes me a member of the Ngāti Kahungunu tribe. My name is Peter Allen, and I now live in Palmerston North. This has been my first one, just like Nat. Last year we were observers up in Auckland and enjoyed it so much we had to come back. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora, Peter.
Thank you, Pete, for that. My name's Patrick, and I'm from Wellington, and this is probably my 4th conference at the moment. You know, I hope you guys all have a good weekend. Thank you.
Hi, this is Bev McCulloch from Taranaki. I'm the coordinator of the Taranaki Network. We're slowly growing, we're up to 10 now, so yep, getting somewhere. And I think this is about my 10th conference.
Oh, kia ora everybody. Ko Hikarangi Tamonga ko Waiapu Tāwa. Ko Pānua Kai Hapu. Ko Ngāti Pro Te Iwi. Ko Hinawai Waiapu ko Marae. Nā wiki woka takakwea ko Mama Lillian Papa George. Ruramu Hauni Puhara Aho. Kia ora everybody. I remember the first conference I went to. It was in the Lincoln College here in Christchurch. got into a bit of trouble, being a young fella. However, at this point in time, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to thank the conference from last year for best wishes to get well. A lot of you might know I wasn't feeling too good at that time after the dog business. But once again, sir, thank you very much to you all. Thank you.
No problem, Jack.
Good morning. I'm Vaughan Dodd from Auckland, National Information Line Coordinator, and thank you for those who've given me feedback, which has universally been very positive and encouraging. My first conference was in 1986, and I've been to most since then, so it must be slightly more than 30. And Jared, the audio that I am getting is beautiful. Thank you.
Hi, I'm RJ Greer from Tauranga, and this is my 4th conference.
Morena, I'm Robin Garden from Invercargill. I'm the regional rep for Southland, and this is my 3rd conference.
Good morning, everybody. Andrea Courtney from Southland, board member and vice chair of Southland branch. Been coming a long time, late 90s, I believe. So I don't think I might have missed one, but that's about it. I enjoyed them so much.
Marina, everybody. Judy Small from Hamilton. I'm Deputy Chair of the RNZFB Board. I've been coming to conference not regularly to start with, so I had young children, but my first conference was 1980, and then came regularly from the early 1990s. So I think I've been to about 30 conferences altogether.
Kia ora, Paula Waby from Ōtepoti. I have been to lots of conferences since the early 90s, I think. And while I've got the microphone, is there a Braille copy of the thingy for me? Thank you. It's good to be here.
Morena. I'm David Allen from Ōtepoti. And my first conference was in 2002, and I've attended 21 out of 22 conferences. Good morning.
My maths is a bit different. 23 including today, Dave.
Hang on, can we just let Emily and Anne do their intros? Introduce
Correct,
yourself.
Mr. Matheson.
Kia ora. I've been asked to introduce myself. My name is Emily Tilley. I have recently started working with Rose in the National Office as an admin assistant, so I think I've probably emailed many of you and I'm meeting you for the first time. So it's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
I'm Anne Hawker. I was previously the Principal Disability Advisor of the Ministry of Social Development, and I've been coming here since 2008, and since last year I'm a volunteer.
Thanks, Anne.
Kia ora tātou, it's Paula Tesorero here. I've just come in the back of the room and looking forward to catching up with everyone.
And how many conferences have you been to?
Oh, Jonathan, I reckon 7 or 8. 7?
2017 is your first, if it helps.
7 then.
I sat next to her.
and often with Sam. Paula would bring her son, yes.
Not today. We've got half a dozen people online. How are we going to order these people?
Right, so are we good? Sorry guys, my screen isn't, it's not got everything up, sorry. So if we can, thank you. If we can go to Zoom and let people speak. So we've got Owen, Palamount and Jonathan. So I'll just call people's names out. Right, Owen, Diane and Anya.
In this order, please. Owen, Diane, and then
Yes.
Anya.
Good morning. Owen Pallamountain, Wellington. My first conference was 1986, and I've been to numerous conferences after that.
Diane?
Get Anya.
While we're waiting for Diane's IT to work out, we'll go to Anya, please.
Raylene, Terry and so.
Kia ora koutou. No airana no kotirana ki oku tīpuna he Pākehā au. Kei tino hai ki te raka whai whenua ki tāmaki whaurau. Ko Anya tōku ingoa. My ancestry is Irish and Scottish. I'm Pākehā. I live on the North Shore in Auckland, and I'm Anya, and I've been to several conferences in person and maybe 2 or 3 online. And while I have the floor, if I could just, if people on Zoom are able to stay muted when not speaking, that will really help the rest of us on Zoom have good audio. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks.
Sorry, I
Anya.
didn't realise my audio was off. It's
Yes,
Diane Windsor from Wellington.
Thank you, Diane.
My first conference was late 90s, and I have not been a regular attender since, so I'm sure there are less than 10 I've attended.
Thanks, Diane. Terry. I think
So
it's your
this is
menagerie
Terry
weekend.
from Christchurch. Welcome everybody to Christchurch. Hope you have a good weekend. I have my first conference was in Rotorua in 1991, and I've come to some conferences. I don't know how many, but I often just zoom in now.
We've got Sue and then Geraldine. Looking for Sue. Muted at the moment, Sue. Go to Geraldine.
Hello, it's Geraldine Glanville from Auckland. I think my first conference, or I know my first conference, was in 1993, and it was in Rotorua. I've been to every conference since then, although I've attended via Zoom over the last 2 or 3.
We've got Raylene and Janet. Raylene? Not yet. Janet, come again.
Good morning, it's Janet Palmer speaking from Wellington. Not sure how many conferences I've been to, I've lost count.
We'll come back to Raylene or Sue, whoever gets in first.
Sue's ready.
Sue, go. Go ahead, Sue. The text says you're unmuted, Sue. All right, Zoom is unmuted, but Sue isn't. We hopefully will catch up with them and anyone else later on. Is there anyone we've missed? You, us three. Starting over there, please.
Kia ora tātou, my name's Trudy Thomas Morton, and I'm lucky enough to be here as your minutes taker, and this is absolutely my first conference, so it's great to meet you all. Thank you.
Morning everyone, Rose Wilkinson, and I've been coming to conferences since around 1991, so yeah, glad to be here with you all again.
Which brings us back to me. My first conference was in 2002, and it was in the room we had breakfast, or this space. It was in this space, and I had already paid my life membership, having read Quest for Equity, and I came to conference and went home knowing that my life membership was a bloody good investment. I got all sorts of things out of my first conference. I met all sorts of people, including a future wife. So I had a very good time. and it was life-changing. I suggest to you, you don't have to get married for conference to be a life-changing adventure. We're looking for Tahuia Bill, I believe. Coming? Of course, I am worried that so many of you think you need to get a gold star for being able to count from 2002 or less ago, but I have a complete run. Where are we? Tahuia Bill?
Yep, Tahuia's.
Right.
Is that all right?
Up the front here, to your right is a podium and a bunch of bright light to the side of that. At the podium, we have Tahuia Bill Hamilton, who has been helping Blind Citizens New Zealand and the DPO Coalition, I might add, with our respective, one gets tired of the word journey, but let's use it anyway, respective journeys to being a more inclusive organisation with a greater recognition and emphasis on Te Tiriti o Waitangi. So Tahuia Bill, you have the microphone to help us open conference.
Kia ora, whakalofa la ake atu, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Hutia te rito, hutia te rito te hara keke. Kei he te koma koe ko, ki mai ki aho. He aha te mea nui, he aha te mea nui o te ao. Maku e ki atu, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata, hei. Kia ora tata katoa. So that waiata, it says, if you pluck the centre of the flax bush, where will the bellbirds sing? And then it asks, what is the most important thing in the world? And I say, it is people, it is people, it is people. And that is the theme that you've chosen for your conference. Thank you for the honour of being able to speak to you to open the conference. And I just want to make a couple of points. I'll be brief. The first one is that the flax bush is a metaphor for family. So that on the outside of the bush, you have the older leaves, your ancestors. And then as you go in, you come to these grandparents that Dan talked about. Nō reira, tēnei te mihi ate kia koe Dan hei whakarite tō tātou nei hui. So thank you for opening our hui with karakia today. So you have the ancestors, the grandparents, the parents, the older children, and right in the front is the mokopuna. And what that waiata says, that if you take that rito or the mokopuna out of the flax bush won't grow. It won't grow its flower. Therefore, there'll be no place for the bellbird to land and sing its beautiful song. And I think in many ways, we're all dependent on that family, because as well as being each plant, each harakeke or plant, flax bush being a plant, it's actually tied to a community. And when I read through your papers, I saw how your community works. So I congratulate you, Jonathan, and your team on selecting that theme for the conference, and I hope it works, that it does bring your people, our people, together. I've read your papers, and I can't believe the issues that you're involved in and the impact you're making internationally and nationally. You're represented, you carry your members' issue to try and make sure that your members have accessibility to all of the services and all of the community initiatives, and to make sure that you're included in those initiatives. So congratulations on the staff and your leaders who've helped make those progress. I'm really impressed by the influence that you have. You're actually speaking to some pretty important people, to some pretty important groups, and they're listening to you, and you're bringing about change, so congratulations on that. I want to acknowledge the work that I've been doing with your organisation as part of the treaty remit that came up last year or the year before, and we'll talk about that later on. And it was really, really heartening listening to everyone introduce themselves unashamedly, beginning with a kia ora and calling the place name by Tāmaki Makaurau and instead of the boring old Auckland, who we don't even know who he was, and all of that. And it was easy, it just rolled off your lips. And I congratulate you on your willingness to do that, particularly in this climate of anti-Māori things from this government. But I won't go there just yet. I also want to, I just want to talk to you about your purpose, which I found really, really refreshing, because what you're wanting to do is to do things for yourselves. You want to take charge of your lives and being self-determining. And, you know, that is the best place to be. We call it rangatiratanga, self-determination, the same thing. And we'll talk about that later on. Finally, I want to congratulate the staff under your leadership, Rose, in putting all of the papers together and bringing you together, and your board under your leadership, Jonathan, in bringing the team together. I look forward to joining with and hearing some of your discussions over the next 2 days, and hopefully meeting many of you. Nō reira, have a very, very successful conference, and I hope those of you who have been here since 1971 and before will find this the most invigorating conference you've ever been to. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi Māori e tātou, tātou. That was so good, we'll do it again. Te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi Māori e tātou, tātou e. Now, what a better way to start the conference than be talking about love, truth, peace for all of us. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Well, sorry, Paula, we haven't set you up to fail so badly ever before when we've got you to talk at our conference. Our next speaker is Paula Tesorero. That was cool. What have you got, Paula? Are you joining me somewhere here? I'll just move my gavel so she can't belt me with it for those remarks. I have to say this year, while Paula's making her way to join me up the front here, the organisation has a few special things, and I have a gavel. If you've never seen the gavel before, it does exist. Ooh, with a terrible resonance with the steel tables. But this year I have a new device, Paula. You haven't seen this one before? You've seen one like it. No, that's a bell. This is a ding-a-ling.
Okay.
This one, Paula, is for the people who talk too long.
Well, do you want me to hold it?
Sure.
Yes. Take it away from me.
Yes. So Paula, welcome. You've spoken at conference once or thrice before, and you joined us online last year instead of being with us in person. It was last year, wasn't it? Yes. So I remember how many conferences I've been to. I just can't remember what happened at them.
Oh, so memorable.
They all start rolling into one glorious adventure of life. So you are still Chief Executive of Whaikaha, and it's got to be a challenging time for you and your staff. And so now's our chance to hear from you a little, or perhaps a lot, depending on how you're feeling today.
And depending on the bell.
No. Rose took the ding-a-ling thing away.
Thank you. I'm just adjusting the mics a little bit. E ngā mana, i ngā reo, rau rangatira mā, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Paul Te Sereo tōku ingoa, ko Te Timu Whakaraia hou i te Manatu Whaikaha, Ministry of Disabled People. Tā alofa lava, kia orana, warm Pacific greetings. My name is Paula. I'm the Chief Executive of Whaikaha, the Ministry of Disabled People. My sign name is, I've got two fists sort of moving in a forward direction, and it's to represent two bicycle pedals moving in a forward direction. And I am standing next to Jonathan, and I am not that much taller than the lectern. Haven't got any taller since the last conference, and I'm wearing a short sleeve black top, white top with black spots on it, and my hair is a sort of a browny blonde colour, and it's short, and I'm wearing black pants and very bright green shoes. Thank you, Blind Citizens New Zealand, for inviting me back to your conference today. I did have to think, Jonathan, when you asked how many conferences I had been to, because it's been a real mix of attending in person and some online. But it's good that you've kept the tally since 2017. So I've always enjoyed these conferences, and I'm really looking forward to spending most of the day with you today, which provides a real opportunity to listen to things that you're talking about, and also to catch up with you over the morning tea, lunch and afternoon tea breaks. So I'm really looking forward to that. And hello everyone on screen as well. It's a really important opportunity to celebrate the very long history of Blind Citizens New Zealand and the important role that you play in raising awareness, educating, advocating and promoting issues which are so important to blind, deaf-blind, low vision and vision impaired people living in Aotearoa. As I look out today, there are many leaders in our community, but specifically being here at this conference, I do want to acknowledge you, Jonathan, as Blind Citizens National President for all the work that you do. Other board members who are here, Chief Executive Rose Wilkinson, the Royal New Zealand Foundation of the Blind Board Director Judy Small. Hey Judy, lovely to see you. And Blind Low Vision New Zealand Chief Executive Andrea Midgton, who I am looking forward to connecting with. And also just want to acknowledge my colleagues from Whaikaha, Vaughan, Pauline and Morris. Morris has a very special role in our office and brings a lot of much appreciated moments of joy and happiness, and constantly looking around for food. Hey, Pauline, at our desks. And finally, can I acknowledge Te Huia Bill Hamilton for your words this morning, and nice for you to be here, Bill. I also know the Minister for Disability Issues, the Honourable Louise Upston, is speaking to you online later today. She will update you on the independent review of the disability support system and the subsequent machinery of government changes, meaning that the Ministry of Social Development is now responsible for delivering disability supports to the approximate 120,000 disabled people in New Zealand. I will focus today on the opportunities presented by the roles and responsibilities for Whaikaha as it moves forward as a separate, standalone government agency from the 1st of December this year, as distinct from being a departmental agency and hosted inside the Ministry of Social Development. Before I do, I just want to also consider the theme of today's conference, He Tangata, He Tangata, He Tangata. As Te Huia Bill said, He aha te mea nui, māku I ki atu, He Tangata, He Tangata, He Tangata. What is the most important thing in the world? I answer people, it is people, it is people. The whakatauki will be familiar to many of us. The root of it is pa harakeke. It recognises that it is the people, individuals, whānau and communities who must be placed at the centre of everything that we do. For me, this statement also acknowledges the importance of the people within Whaikaha, across government and in the community, who work together tirelessly to overcome barriers, challenge the status quo and find solutions. It is ultimately people working together who will create a better future. We also need disabled people in all spaces and places. We need disabled people in government, in DPOs and non-government organisations, and in the watchdog organisations, in business, local government, all spaces and places. It's my view that when this happens, we will all thrive. The last 2 years would be fair to say, would be an understatement to say it was a challenge. It's been an incredibly challenging couple of years for our community and for the first 2 years of Whaikaha. We spent the first 2 years building the organisation from a very small number of staff. When I first walked in, there was just under 120, to building it to 330 staff, building the systems and processes that we needed to run as an organisation, trying to stabilise the delivery side of disability supports, to make sure that the change, while we were still a bit docked into Te Whatu Ora and to MSD, that we could still deliver disability supports. No doubt you will have caught up with the changes that mean we now have a different mandate, which I'll talk about shortly. Over the past 2 years, we have, alongside DPOs, been at the UN examination in Geneva. We've appeared before the Abuse and Care Royal Commission of Inquiry and given evidence to the Waitangi Tribunal's Y2575 inquiry. Those three really important inquiries and examinations really provide quite an important framework and grounding for our future work together. We've strengthened our quality and safeguarding work to protect disabled people from abuse and neglect. When I joined Whaikaha, that wasn't the case, that we had those frameworks in place, and it was always important to me that we build those. And I might just take this moment to acknowledge the passing of Dr. Pauline Boyles, who was an absolute giant in our community and one of our very respected and loved members of staff, who we lost this week. And she put her heart into the work we did around safeguarding. So we pay our respects to her today and always. We've supported the New Zealand Sign Language Board as it governs the New Zealand Sign Language strategy and promotes the language revitalisation efforts. And Lachlan, nice to see you here from Deaf Aotearoa today. We've been engaging with Stats NZ and other key organisations to improve data collection processes and improve the evidence base to support reporting and monitoring of outcomes for disabled people. We all know data is key to improving our understanding of the experiences of disabled people. Our Pacific Teams Talanoa series earlier this year captured feedback from more than 1,000 disabled people, carers and AIGA from across New Zealand. Their findings will inform the development of the next Pacific Disability Action Plan. I'm under no illusion that while much work has progressed, we have to keep our foot on the throttle to continue to develop, progress and respond to the challenges and solutions ahead of us. So what is the future for us at Whaikaha, the Ministry of Disabled People? I'm optimistic about the opportunity that lies ahead for us to focus on the 1.1 million disabled New Zealanders. Cabinet has outlined the Ministry's role and functions, which includes providing system-level leadership, working with others towards societal change, strategic policy advice on disability matters, system-level monitoring, disability information and advice, and support other government organisations to connect with and understand the diverse needs of our population. To create substantive change, it will be a journey. We will have changes we can make more quickly, then other changes will take longer. What does it mean for you, for blind citizens, for New Zealanders that are not part of actively engaging yet with our community? At a very high level, this means Whaikaha will continue to work across government to ensure that disability perspectives are understood and that other agencies are meeting their responsibilities to disabled people. There should be opportunities to create change by taking a more holistic life course approach, enabling disabled people to access supports early and helping people move through services and supports. We'll play a really important system monitoring role, so investing in better data collection and building the capability there is going to be really, really important for us. Our responsibilities include system leadership and stewardship across government. It would be fair to say that while we've put a heap of effort into that, we now have a greater opportunity with a much more concentrated focus in this area. This includes our work with the New Zealand Sign Language Board, the creation of the New Zealand Disability Strategy, and compliance with the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. We'll be providing strategic policy advice on matters affecting disabled people, like the big important, well, they're all important, but critical ones that people often talk to me about being education, health, employment, transport and housing. We'll be doing system-level monitoring to evaluate and monitor progress on outcomes for disabled people across all of the government's goals. And we'll be providing disability information and advice to provide an integrated source of government information for disabled people. This hasn't yet been done, so our challenge is to do this with the new mandate. And we'll be taking on responsibility for the coordination of alternate formats. We'll also be supporting other government organisations to connect with the diverse needs of disabled people, whānau and carers. So those responsibilities will be reflected in a range of work programs which are based in legislation, our international obligations, and that reflect the priorities of the government. We'll have a range of levers available to us to make New Zealand thrive and have the equitable opportunities that everybody else has. This includes holding other agencies to account for making their services, their policies accessible to all New Zealanders. I want to touch on a couple of important pieces of work that we'll be focusing on. A key area of our focus is our ongoing work to respond to the Royal Commission of Inquiry report into abuse in state care. As I said at the start, we appeared before the Royal Commission, and I should also, perhaps at this point, acknowledge the passing of Sir Robert Martin this year, another giant who we lost in our community, and I was privileged, I think that's the right word, privileged to be at the Royal Commission making some opening remarks on the very same day that Sir Robert gave his evidence, and it's one of those days that left an indelible mark on me. So I just acknowledge his passing whilst talking about the Royal Commission of Inquiry. In its report, Whanakatia reveals the horrific treatment of many disabled people, tangata whaikaha Māori, deaf, turi Māori and blind people, including those in Homai College for the Blind. I acknowledge those of you here today who supported the inquiry and shared your own experiences of neglect and abuse. Thank you for your courage and your honesty. I also know there are survivors whose stories will never be shared because they passed away before they had the opportunity to tell their stories, or the challenge of sharing their trauma with the Royal Commission was too much. So we've been involved since the Royal Commission was established in terms of our 2 years, and gave evidence at the inquiry, and we're now heavily involved in the government's response, including working towards how the government makes its formal apology in November, and also on the redress system. So we've been working cross-government on these issues. We have the opportunity to create real change. Blind Citizens New Zealand and organisations we engage with have a really important role. This government has been very clear with their targets and priorities. And we have a minister who I have sat in a number of meetings where she has very bold conversations with her colleagues across their ministerial portfolios about their responsibilities when it comes to serving the disabled communities. The New Zealand Disability Strategy, due by the end of next year, represents another good opportunity for real, deep and meaningful engagement with our community. It's still early days, but I'd like to share some thinking about how we seek to influence change across a range of measures that influence us all. Our Minister is very focused on ensuring that disabled people are front and centre in the conversations and changes that are happening, particularly around education, employment, housing, and broader accessibility. In terms of education, about a quarter of disabled people have low trust in the school system. A third of disabled people have no qualification, compared to 14% of non-disabled people. Our role will be to collaborate and work with education agencies to influence change that benefits disabled students, improve the data that is so desperately needed, build teachers' capability to adapt their approaches to different ways of learning, promote New Zealand Sign Language acquisition in the current refresh of the New Zealand curriculum, and importantly, monitor safety of children in segregated settings, and ultimately continue towards advocating around those segregated settings. In terms of employment, we know that disabled people are less likely to be employed than non-disabled people, and that those who are earn about half as much. We also know that disabled people want to work and that we make great employees. I know 42% of the team at Whaikaha are disabled, and all our employees are great. So what levers can we pull to effect change there? I've recently started engaging more extensively with the business community, and I'm looking forward to playing a strong stewardship role across government, community, and business and with industry leaders to really try and accelerate and grow the employment opportunities for disabled people. I can't stress, and I know that I'm speaking to an absolute converted audience when I talk about really trying to ensure that we all raise the aspirations of disabled people, both in education and employment settings. I've tried very intentionally at Whaikaha to demonstrate through our own actions as an employer the benefits of having a really diverse workforce and working hard to create an inclusive culture. We're still pretty young, so we've got a lot to learn and a long way to go, but the intention and the very deliberate actions are there. More broadly, the public service is committed to achieving better outcomes for disabled people, and I have the real privilege of working with colleagues to implement our 4-point plan, which is a plan across government to improve the experiences of and the numbers of disabled people. I was really proud that we're the only and first government agency to publish data on disability pay gaps in our workforce, and my goal is to work towards that being the case for all government agencies. In health, we've known for a very long time that disabled people experience poorer health outcomes than non-disabled people. And we know that those outcomes are influenced by additional barriers, including accessibility, cost, transport, and access to information, which our community has to work hard to overcome. It's encouraging that Health New Zealand and the Ministry of Health are working to address those inequities, including implementing the Health of Disabled People strategy and the New Zealand Health Plan. I want Whaikaha to continue to grow our support for health agencies to raise their responsibilities to improve equity and accessibility across the health system. That includes supporting them as we do to build their networks in the community that help monitor service quality and participate in service improvement initiatives with them. You might have heard about the government's 9 targets. What we've done at Whaikaha is look across all of them and try and raise the awareness across the agencies that are responsible for delivering those targets, the importance of raising the profile of disabled people across those targets. It has provided a really useful framework for us to really get in and talk about, so on this target, how are we going for disabled people? On this target, how are we going for disabled people? And it's something that our Minister is very keen to champion with her colleagues. In addition to those health, education and social outcomes, we've also got a whole range of other areas to work through. For example, Cabinet has asked us to take on the responsibility for the provision of alternate formats, which will transfer from MSD to us, and to build an integrated disability information and advice function. So I look forward to the opportunity for the Ministry to do that in December. And this is an awesome opportunity for Blind Citizens New Zealand and other DPOs to work with us on doing that. We all know that successful projects and programs to deliver good results for our community rely on the involvement of disabled people and their families from the beginning. We know what works best is having disabled people at the table. We're often asked by a range of agencies to nominate disabled people for governance and advisory positions. And it used to be the case that you know, it was sort of who you knew and who you thought of at the time you were asked. But actually things have got a little more sophisticated, and in fact, Pauline, who's here, runs our nominations database, which we continue to grow to identify appropriate candidates who want to be considered for nominations. So if you're not on that database, I really encourage you to do that, because we want to continue building our database of fantastic disabled people. So I'll continue to champion all of the work across government, across business, and within our broader society to ensure that disabled people are at the various tables. Because nā tō rauru, nā tāku rauru, ka ora ai te iwi. Which means with your food basket and my food basket, the people will thrive. Thank you not only for hosting me today, but creating the space for conversation, collaboration, and change. I'll be here until about 4 o'clock, and really happy to either take questions now and or throughout the course of the day. So thank you again for having me. Happy to answer any questions. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Now we might be on. There we go. Lovely. Thank you, Paula. As is the way, we will be looking for your hands. There will be a microphone that comes to you in the order of our choosing.
Oh, 3 hands all went up at once, Jonathan,
Yes,
at once.
yeah, but I have a long memory. So Rose tells me quietly, and I pick the silent one.
No, so there's Clive, Thomas and Martine. No, sorry, Paul Brown, Thomas and Martine.
I don't know why I do this to myself. Paul Brown. Paul Brown, you'll be followed by Thomas and then Martine.
Kia ora. Thank you for speaking to us today, Paula. I guess this will come as no surprise to those who know me, that I think what happened on the 18th of March was a betrayal of the agreement between disabled people and government in terms of setting up our disability ministry. And I think what we're having, I guess, is ODI Mark II, and that really saddens me. But I am pleased that you've come to speak in front of your disabled peers today and to put forward your vision of Whaikaha as it now is. I guess the question I want to ask, given that you have come in front of disabled peers to talk about this stuff, is we often have to make decisions on boards and committees, whatever. We've often have to make decisions about whether we get involved at all, because we've not been listened to or we feel that things haven't been set up properly. We often have to make decisions about whether we stay or not. And I don't just mean having a tanty and kind of throwing the toys out the pram. I mean principled decisions. So I guess my question, and it's asked in a spirit of trying to understand. I'm guessing that you staying on as Chief Executive Whaikaha may not have been an easy decision, and that you've jumped around and, you know, all the rest of it on it. But I want to know what really drove you to stay. Why have you decided to stay in the tent and continue this work? Because, as I say, it's something as disabled people that we have to make a call on all the time, and I'm keen to know what drove you to stay.
Thank you, Paul, for your reflections and your question. I'll address some of your reflections first. Look, I think, or not I think, I know, and I agree that what happened earlier this year caused, real distress for our community. And I think if we, for those who have read the independent review, those who read the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet review of our establishment, it's no secret that it's very well understood that there was systemic failure really in our establishment, and that did not set us up well. I can say it was incredibly difficult running a $2.5 billion operation, a little bit wedged in between two agencies, and not having the number of people, the infrastructure, all of the things you literally need to run that kind of operation. And that combined with a very real lack of investment over probably a good 15 years in the disability support system. And I don't just mean funding, I mean investment in the tools to support staff and in all of the policies and the policy settings and things. 15 years of underinvestment of that, and then setting up a new agency was a pretty difficult position for all of us to be in. And I think what is often a surprise to people that I talk to is the revelation that 3,500 people join the disability support system every year, but the funding is capped. It doesn't rise when that number of people join, and the cost of providing those services was increasing substantially, and at some point something was going to give. Did it give in the right way? No. Should things have been set up differently? Yes. And I think I've spent a lot of time looking back, Paul, a lot of time casting right back 15 years. I look back to the beginning of our time as an agency, and I know that central agencies have done the same thing, so has MSD, and I think we all take our learnings from looking back. What I'm trying to now do is move forward and take an agency forward and build trust and confidence with our community. Lots of people don't necessarily agree with the machinery of government changes that have been made. And I sort of only had a few days to process it myself before talking to our staff. What I have noticed, though, since not having the responsibility for a large operation since the middle of September, it has been an interesting time to really be able to get back into that creative headspace around what will it take for us. And we're not an ODI version 2. I've got to challenge you on that one, Paul, because we're bigger. We're a ministry. You've got a chief executive who is disabled at the table with other chief executives, and there are some real benefits in having a very separate, standalone ministry. But there is a lot to do. We'll only do it well if we do it together. And, we'll be an organisation of roughly 75 people, and, that may grow in the future. So it gives us a concentrated number of people to work on those, important things across government. And I have often said, and I will continue to say, that actually if we focus our efforts on affecting change for the 1.1 million disabled people, then people's need for accessing supports is actually likely to decrease over time. So that's where we can now put our effort. And, that's what I'm committed to doing. And, you know, our staff are going through a pretty challenging time at the moment. But I hope we get to a place where people can get excited in December about rebuilding and building the sort of nimble and agile organisation that we will need to be. And, you know, I reflect a lot on sort of what I've done in my life, what I want to do moving forward, Paul, and, you know, I'm under no illusion, actually, that like many in this room have and will continue to do, I take real pride and value out of serving my community, and that's what I intend to do in whatever role or roles I have in the future. Serving disabled people is you know, the work of my life, as it is for many in this room.
Looking at Thomas, I'm guessing.
Kia ora, Paula, and great to see you here again. And thanks for your address to us today. You talked about the disability strategy and the role of Whaikaha, but can you tell us also, where do you see Whaikaha's role fitting within the UN Convention? How do you see that rolling out, being more broadly adopted, especially by local councils, but within government itself? So often we see now the cuts that government are making are impacting on aspects of the UN Convention. For example, we saw huge cuts to public transport going out to some of our regions. Wellington had a program of upgrading a number of its stations to make them more accessible for the train stations. That is all going to be put on hold because of the significant cuts. That, to me, doesn't show a commitment by the government to honour what's in the UN Convention about accessibility in public transport. So how do you see your role, as in Whaikaha's role, in trying to get government to better fund? Because when they make cuts, quite often, for example, with the public transport, this is what we want to do. They don't specify that this is around accessibility. It's just a big project that they're going to do, upgrade our stations. But when that money gets cut, that means disabled people can't use public transport. And so often, while accessibility may be seen as part of a package, it's often one of the things that goes first because they need to keep all the other services running. And so how do we get to a point where we have an agency such as Whaikaha who can actually tell the government that actually when you make these cuts, this is the impact this is going to have. We need to see better access, not just to public transport, even to home appliances for our community. They're not accessible. And so often, you know, and that doesn't really come under the auspices of government, unfortunately, but somehow we need to improve that education, that whole aspect of making government's decisions accountable for not complying with the UN Convention. Thank you.
Kia ora, Thomas. Thank you. Nice to see you as well. So thank you for your observations and question. I think there's a few things I'd say in response. I think that if we can kind of get the ecosystem of government, local government, business and community working in a better way and understanding the impacts of one set of decisions by one of those on the other, and the opportunities to work and sort of understanding that ecosystem better, I think we do better for disabled people. I think, you know, we've probably historically, in our all 2 years, have, you know, focused on across government, and that's really important. But I think moving forward with the capacity to focus on local government and business, we open up some different conversations and different opportunities. So that's sort of one thing. We've got a strategy session with our minister next week about you know, her aspirations for the portfolio, and you know, that will be an important conversation in terms of, you know, really thinking about how you could do things differently. I think the other thing is the UNCRPD. My experience, both in my previous role as the Disability Rights Commissioner and in this role, is, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this.
The honest way.
We've got a lot of work to do to raise awareness of the convention, a huge amount of work, both of the convention, of the legal obligations it imposes on a state, and then on our ability to realise the aspirations of the convention. So, you know, I think often we, and I myself, have been guilty of talking with agencies and others as though they understand the convention, and I have to often dial back and go back to basics. So I think we do have both an opportunity and an obligation to raise awareness of the convention, because otherwise you can imagine decisions can be made quite easily, actually, without understanding the impacts on people. We do, interestingly, it feels like we're providing comment on cabinet papers constantly, and I wonder whether that is the most effective thing to do, or the more effective thing might be to focus on less of those cabinet papers and pick the ones where we think we can go much harder, and rather than sort of, you know, spread across hundreds of cabinet papers. So I think that's, you know, that's something I've been turning my mind to, Thomas, is just perhaps not always just providing comment in a reactive way, but really honing down the number of things that we focus on so that we can get better outcomes and then move on after we've demonstrated progress in those areas.
Martine, it looks like you are going to have to be a little bit more concise than your predecessors if we're going to get morning tea on time. Go ahead, please.
You might have to use a ding-a-ling thing.
I can't use a ding-a-ling thing on her. She hasn't even spoken yet.
That's right. Give me a chance first. Paula, great to see you again, and it's great to see your commitment to our conferences. I want to talk about your comment about needing that you'll be providing more integrated disability information and advice services. Now, we know there's many DIASs out there, disability information and advice service contracts, that used to historically be provided by, paid for by the Ministry of Health. You know, we had Te Rupa Waihora for Māori advice, we had Independent Living Services, Disability Connect, and many across the country. And even this organisation has tried to find a foot in the door, because clearly we want to provide information about ourselves and not just rely on service providers to provide disability information and advice. So can you talk a bit about what will be the difference, what you do and what these DIASs will do? Because I realise government wants to cut back on duplication, but I also realise that what if we have 7 organisations we can contact about total mobility or something? Then that is actually still duplication. So can you just talk a little bit about your future role as you see will be in disability information advice, and where that leaves the difference with what other DIASs are doing currently?
Thank you, Martine. So Jonathan's given me 2 minutes to respond. So there's a couple of things to say. One, we've actually been doing, as part of separating the funding between MSD and Whaikaha moving forward, a look at which of those DIAS contracts are about information and advice, and therefore should be the responsibility of Whaikaha moving forward, and which are more about service delivery and therefore should go to MSD. Turns out an awful lot of them are about information and advice. And so we've got, there was a review done of the DIAS sort of maybe a decade ago, and one of the recommendations in that report from my last read of it was that there did need to be a much more integrated way of providing information. So that will be sort of one of the key things once we have those contracts and relationships. We'll be looking at how we can do that. I think, one of the sort of exciting new functions that we will have is that integrated sort of all of government place to go, really, for all things disability. And I'm under no illusion about the challenge actually in doing that. But we have to do that with our community, right? Because it's our community who need to access that. So I think big opportunities there to work together to be able to share information that DPOs want to put on the channels that we make that available through. So yeah, lots of work to do there in building that service, which we'll start doing in December.
Thank you. Paula nicely stuck to the 2-minute limit. Peter Allen, you've got a microphone, hopefully. It's coming. Paula, I'm going to say thank you for actually sharing, I think, more information than you had to. Other people may have chosen to share less.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Peter, when you're
Kia ora, Peter.
Kia ora. Mā whero mā pango ka ora ai te iwi. That's another Māori whakatauki that talks about hard work. It means your hands are black and red from the work that you do. And that was the whakatauki that Paula used on her first day as tumu whakarai for Waikaha. That's 2 years ago. And certainly I've been privileged enough to be able to see the mahi that she does. The hard work is always fantastic, and we always appreciate that hard work that you are doing there for us. You are our champion as the Tumu Whakarai of Waikaha, and it was wonderful for you to come here today in person to address our conference and also to answer some of the questions that, some of those difficult questions our blindies always come up with out of the audience. So wonderful to have you with us here again today. And now I'm going to give you a hongi first and then a hug.
Oh, yay.
And as always, we always have a little gift as well.
Gift. Oh, chocolates. Samuel will love those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Can we have a microphone to Russell? And I'll tell you when, Russell. We do know that there were other hands. We're going to have to do a bit of lesson and thinking about questions being pithy and concise if we're going to squeeze every interested person in. Russell, you're going to bless the food for us, I believe.
Aye. Hello.
There we go. Thank you.
Well, yes, I've been asked to provide a blessing over the food, and the blessing is to cover the day, not just our partaking in the morning tea, but lunch and afternoon tea as well. So it'll be English and some te reo as well. So Heavenly Father, we thank you for the food that we're imagining at the moment, but about to partake in. We ask your blessing upon it. May it sustain us. May it inspire us. And may it help us flourish in our kōrero and our understandings. Aroha o te atua. Āmeni.
Lovely. Right, to get your morning tea in the most orderly manner, you need to go back out the door you came in, at the back over your left shoulder, do a yui and come in the other door to the room that is to your left as you were seated. And then you need to be back here by 11, please. It's where you had breakfast, if that helps.
First light is a lonely scene, watching the landslide into the sea. Morning in a place I know, train is leaving, but I will not go. 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 Said I will not go. Everything I want is here. I can shake this or break this. It's as sure as the streets are calling now. Feel it as the daylight nears, getting stronger each moment. These bones know the way. Oh, first light is a lonely scene, watching the landslide into the sea. Morning in a place I know, train is leaving, but I will not go. Everything I want is here. I can shake this or break this. As sure as the streets are calling out, yeah. Feel it as the daylight nears, getting stronger each moment. These bones know the way. Back in the fray. Back for the day. Back in the fray. Here for the day. Can shake this. Can shake this. Can break this. Can shake this. Can break this now. Can shake this. I can break this. Can shake this.
I know you got your talents and some very special skills. So very good for fixing problems. But lately, dear, I found you on your head. And I'm struggling to find the solution. One way we can see eye to eye. These days I prefer to bury problems. Slam the door, shout, well I hope you don't mind. Can't see how you can stay if I can't even look at your face. How can things ever be the same when we run and run and stay on the game? just don't know. Perhaps you just agree deeply, so and so. Tell me what one woman never be enough for you. Well, I don't think there's much left for me to do now. Can't see how you can stay if I can't even look at your face. How can things ever be the same if we run and around and stay alone again? You talk about chances.
Check 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. No? 1, 2, 3 for telecoil users. 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2, 3. So that is. One, two, check. 1, 2, 3. Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Check. 1, 2.
She wanted to die by a river. She wanted the tide to come up and drag her away, so that when she's dreaming, she could watch the tree line fall away. She used to draw rainbow faces in the sand. But the rainbow made the face sad. Had bits of foam coming out the bottom of its mouth. It's kind of funny that way.
Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, no difference. It's working for you. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes.
Where I stand. Let's go steady. Let's make a plan. Marinate on that for a little while. Yeah.
can jump around to the sound of the music. When you feel it, the bass coming through the tremolo. Passages that seem to go real, real slow. And this is what I want, and this is what you get. Come and share a toast for all our times we recollect. From the start into these bends, we unwind our weary heads. Being clever never sweat you when forever has no end. Chewing on your tail.
Just wanna put my hands
wants to take it next door, then most welcome. One, two, three. One, two. If we can be taking our seats. Ting-a-ling. Ting-a-ling.
Hang on, John, just wait. The technicians are busy helping people.
Are they? To do what?
Right.
With technical things or?
No, with people. Right, you go now.
Okay, people. We hopefully have we do have microphone. Yes, stop bellowing, Jonathan. People, you are sitting hopefully. We are aware that not everyone got the morning tea they might have wanted. Breathe deep. You would raise your hand and a microphone might come to you. Or is it social, JP? Emily's coming to you with a mic right now, JP.
Oh, kia ora. Hello? Yes. Jonathan, why didn't we memorial service this morning, remembering the people who passed?
We're doing that in about 2
No, but we shouldn't
minutes.
have done it in an hour's time. We should do it before the meeting starts. Thank you.
Are we ready for the Rose with the apologies? Are we ready for the apologies? Okay, people, we are overdue for a couple of things. JP has noted it. The first of all is we haven't done the apologies after the roll call, and so we need to start to remember people who aren't here and can't be here. First of all, Rose has got a list of the apologies that we do know about.
No, I don't. I actually don't have a list this time, Jonathan. I've got Doug Johnston.
That's a list.
That's one person, so if we have others, people will need to put their hands up and we'll get microphones to them, please.
We had Carolyn Weston and Catherine Stevenson for lateness.
Well, Carolyn Weston is here. She joined at 10 o'clock, but we didn't interrupt proceedings, and Catherine Stevenson for lateness. I hadn't got round to lateness, sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So if maybe when we get our list formulated properly, we will revisit this in the morning. We must also remember those people, and we've already been reminded of some this morning by name, but people from our own community who have passed in the last 12 months. I, in particular, will remember Donald Hunt, and I think some of us who read our email and share the news will have already seen this, so if you heard it before, too bad. But I well remember Donald giving me some advice that was useful in my world, and it was when we did a lot about Braille, and Donald reminded conference that the contraction for Braille, BRL, was the guide for planting your vegetables. Braille was important everywhere. That's brassica, roots and legumes in that order, and hopefully you will now not forget that either, and that's courtesy of Donald Hunt. Can I also acknowledge, although not blind, the impact that Jill Farmer had on many people's lives, and maybe someone may wish to speak more about that, but there will be others. So if we can have hands for people we wish to remember specifically, we will be standing once we've acknowledged the specific people.
Right, John Puhara.
We'll come to you first, JP.
Oh, kia ora everybody. As you all know, we had the passing of Eddie Lowe a couple of weeks ago. Eddie Lowe was one of our schoolmates back in the late 50s, early 60s. He was one of those guys that had to look after us junior boys back at school days. And I remember him very well. Got to know him a bit better in the entertainment world. I've seen him at different places around the country. The last time I saw Eddie Lowe, I was at her 80th birthday. It was your auntie, I think, Jonathan, Naomi Godfrey. He came up from Christchurch to that to do her birthday, and him and I sang together. And that's the last time I saw Eddie. Thank you.
Thanks, JP.
Tēnā rā hukuru, tēnā iwi tātou, ko hui hui mai ne, I te Nepal. Thank you.
Other hands? Microphone to Daniel, please.
Mr. Dixon passed away a couple of weeks ago. He didn't have a funeral. He's having one on the 25th of July, a memorial service in Galatea. He grew up in Galatea and Murupara. And I've lost a very good friend. Yet the organisation lost a very good and honest man with money. Yeah, so, and he was 93 years old.
If there's no one else we wish to remember specifically. Russell, you're next.
Just acknowledge the passing of Roger Tuffield. He was a member of the Whanganui branch of ABC. Experienced visual difficulties later in life, but embraced the reality of that to his best of ability. Lived to well into his 80s, and remembered fondly by the bowling community, by the branch itself, and by his whānau.
Thank you. Coming to you, Paul.
Kia ora te whānau. Although their names have been mentioned this morning, not blind but disabled people, I just want to mention again Dr. Pauline Boyles and of course Sir Robert Martin. And I'm not going to say much about Robert. People know what a giant he was and just what a lovely, genuine guy. But people know his exploits, if that's the right word. Pauline, I think, was much more in the background, and I've known Pauline, I knew Pauline over a number of years, but particularly in the last wee while, given I'm at MSD working in the field of violence prevention and disability, Pauline was huge in that space. really passionate about adult safeguarding, safety of disabled people. I remember having a big discussion with her just a year or so ago about not just evidence, not just being things that could be counted, but about voice, and that actually our testimonies and what we say, talking about our experience is important and needs to be documented and got hold of. So, as I say, neither of them blind people, but I think hugely important in New Zealand and, for Robert's case, the international kind of disability scene.
There's no more hands. I'm going to invite those of us who can stand and observe a moment of silence for those named and many others unnamed. I did have one more. Oh, did you? I did have one more, Mr. Chairman. Oh. Well, while everyone's got the extra honour of standing for it, JP, do you want to remember them?
I thought somebody else would have done this, but that's okay. I'd just like to remember the last passing of Pio Haratau. Pio passed away this year, a few months ago, and Pio was another one that I went to school with many years ago. Thank you.
Thanks, Jake.
Sorry. Again, not a blind person, but important and known to many in Auckland. Martine's mum, Estelle, who passed away a few months ago. And, you know, everyone around the Auckland branch in the blindness community in Auckland knew Estelle. And so, yeah, let's think of her too.
And to your right, we have another hand.
And I apologise for lateness too. I'd just like to acknowledge Brian Say's passing away not long, about a month after our last conference. He was a very well-respected member of Nelson Branch and was on the board for a time and spent many years assisting the blindness community in the Nelson region with technology. Thank you.
Okay. Far too many giants to fall. Okay, thank you. Right beside you, apparently, Peter.
Aue. E ngā mate kua ngaro ki te pō. Tākoto ki te rangi Māori. For those of us who have passed, we allow them to lay in peace. Ka apiti hono, tātai hono, rātau ki a rātau. Tātai hono, ka apiti hono, tātai hono, te hongo ora ki te hongo ora. Tātou katoa, mauri ora i te oranga. Hi hei, mauri ora. Just in Māori, for tikanga, we tend to talk about our past and those who have gone. And we just like to pay homage to them as we have done today. Kua hinga ngā tōtara i roti te wao. So those tautoras that have fallen, those giants that have fallen in our forest. But then after that, we will allow them to lay in peace and let them go. And then we return back to the living, to our people in our world and our realm. And we just like to acknowledge that through tikanga. Kia ora tātou.
Thank you, Peter. It comes time for me to say a few words in the presidential address, and I'm on a time limit. Who's got the bell? Yeah.
I'm tempted, but I would not dare.
I'll tell you where to put it.
You could bring it as ding-a-ling.
Yeah. So,
Or you could just bring the bell down here.
Yeah, it's all right, it's all right. Looks like I need that gavel. Yeah, Rose did ask me to email my speech notes to make it easier on the minute taking, and I noticed, Rose, that I've pressed send and it's stuck in the spell check of death phase. So let's just press escape and go, yes, we'll send all the spelling errors. There you go. One set of speech notes emailed before I give my address, as promised. It's got to wait for the email to arrive. Don't be cheeky. Right, so we did choose Hei Tangata, Hei Tangata, Hei Tangata as the theme for conference. And the board did so with a little bit of a recognition that there was a reset needed. It was time we started thinking about our people. And using that as the basis of our theme for conference, but actually also for the way that we wanted the year to unfold, not just being a theme for conference. And for my way of looking at the whakatauki that has been thoroughly described this morning, there isn't an accident that Hei Tangata is repeated 3 times. Because there are, in our world, 3 kinds of people that we need to be thinking about. And those 3 people, through 3 major groups of people, would be the past, the present, and the future. And so we have just remembered some of the people who have contributed to our past. And later on this evening, we will make even more special mention of someone from our community for our Memorial Hall of Fame or Hall of Honour. The other thing about the people in the past, and they haven't all had to pass away to be remembered, and the impact that they have. Because I find myself in environs as your national president, often remembering that I am the 16th of my kind, and that there are 15 others watching me, at least, and that I have to meet the standards that collectively those 15 presidents before me have set for this organisation, and in fact you have set for them. Our AGM and conference sets a lot of time aside to be talking about what it is we, the present people, are doing with and for each other. And I think that's entirely right. And so we aren't just talking about the people who are actually here, we're talking about the people who also share our views, our aspirations. And in reality, most of what we end up discussing at our conferences isn't actually about today. It's about tomorrow. We might learn something at conference and put it into our own individual lives when we return to our homes. That's about the future. But the reality we must also think about is that the vast majority of people who will benefit from the work of this organisation are not in this room, they're not online, and actually the vast majority of people who will benefit from this organisation's work don't currently have any links to this organisation. And so my first reminder for you all is that we all, every single one of us, has an opportunity to do something about that. There's plenty of people in the New Zealand public who are living their lives quite blissfully unaware that one day circumstances, mostly called ageing, will bring them to our community. They aren't worried about what it needs to be for blind people, what needs to change to make it better. They're blissfully unaware. And in fact, there's hundreds more that are actually yet to be born. Because this statistician is quite willing to predict that we aren't going to see the eradication of blindness or low vision in my lifetime. So what sort of world is it that we, the current experts in blindness and low vision in Aotearoa, are wanting to create for ourselves and those who will follow us? I certainly believe it is high time that we all asked, what sort of disabled persons organisation will Blind Citizens New Zealand be in 5 to 10 years' time? We quite clearly do have a mandate. And we quite clearly do have lots of opportunities. But the reality we have today is that we do not have all of the resources as an organisation to meet all of those opportunities and do everything that today's members, people from our history, and those who are yet to come will expect of this disabled persons organisation. The United Nations Committee produced General Comment 7. This was the guidance to help governments who didn't know better, who didn't know at all, how to work with disabled people's organisations to give effect to Articles 4, 3 and 33, where the explicit need for involvement by disabled people's organisations is explicitly stated in the Convention. I think it's no surprise that if I was to assess New Zealand for how well we embrace General Comment 7, I would say we've got some work to do. We have not, as a country, fully embraced General Comment 7 and the value of disabled people's organisations. Disabled people's organisations, including Blind Citizens New Zealand, are surviving. We are not actually thriving. In the end, because DPOs, including our own, are not able to do everything that we want as blind people and as other disabled people too, it means that in effect, our voice, your voice, is being limited. We are not